Hi, my name is Lisa Starlipper. I'm also with the Department of Emergency Management.
Hi, everybody. I'm Joanna Fragula with the Mayor's Office on Disability.
And I also have my partner here, Kristen.
Hello, Kristen. I'm videotaping this for prosperity. So thank you.
Thank you. Now we're going to do something special. We're going to have a raffle. We're going to give away 5 prizes. Carolyn will lead the raffle.
Okay. The first winner is 838-7168.
係8387-168。
We have a winner.
You can just wait right here. Perfect. Okay. The next winner, 838-7228.
8387-7228。
Next winner, 838-7149.
8387-7149。
Next winner, 838-7188.
8387-7188。
And the last winner for the beginning of this workshop, 838-7173.
8387-7173。 Okay.
Great. Thank you, Carolyn. And at the end of the presentation, Francis and his team will take questions, and then we'll have a raffle for 5 more items. Thank you. Thank you, Francis.
All right, so good afternoon again. My name is Francis Zamora. Again, I'm with the San Francisco Department of Emergency Management. You've met us. We just want to know who's here today in the room. And so how many people here are, raise your hand, are San Francisco residents? Wow, there's a lot of you guys here today. How many are your business owners in San Francisco? Great. Okay, and how many of you were around during the 1989 Loma Prieta earthquake? I was too. So I'll tell you a little story. I was living in the East Bay. I lived in Alameda. That's where I grew up. And I was on one of the really long accordion-style buses. On my way home, getting ready to watch the World Series, A's, Giants. I'm a huge Giants fan. That was a tough one for us. But so the bus started to shake. And I was in 6th grade at the time. And at first I thought, and everyone on the bus thought, that it was just the accordion-style bus just doing its thing, just shaking back and forth. Until I looked outside and I saw the stoplight going like this. And then everyone had that nervous laugh, like, oh, this is an earthquake. And this is before text messaging, this is before people had cell phones, before people had social media. So we had no idea what was going on in the rest of the world or in the rest of the Bay Area. Got home about 15 minutes later, walked home, and my sister and I were kind of joking with our parents, oh, did you feel that earthquake? My parents were glued to the TV. They said the Bay Bridge collapsed, that there was a collapse in Oakland, and that's when it hit us that this was something major. Now, why do I share that story? Because you've heard from a lot of speakers today that we live in earthquake country, and it can potentially be a very scary thing. But what we're going to talk about today is how you can prepare for emergencies like earthquakes, how you can take simple steps to get prepared, how you can get to know your neighbors, and how you can get access to information. And you're going to be much better off in the event there is an earthquake or any type of emergency in San Francisco. Does it sound like a good deal today? All right. Fantastic. All right, I'm going to ask for one more thing as well. Okay, you heard the speakers talk about it. I talked about how we had no idea what was going on in the outside world. Well, technology has certainly advanced here. So who has a phone here today? Who has a phone? Can everyone get their phones out? Okay, we're going to sign up for Alert SF. And Alert SF is San Francisco's emergency text message system. In the event of an emergency in San Francisco, it could be an earthquake, it could be a tsunami, but it could be a major police activity in your neighborhood or even a big fire in your neighborhood. We at the Department of Emergency Management will send you a text message warning you about what's going on and giving you instructions on what to do. So everyone get out their phones. Go to your text messages. All right, I'm going to give you guys a couple of seconds to do that. Go to your text messages. start a new text message. And the number you're going to send a text message to is 888-777. That's 888-777. All right, I'm going to give a look up at me. 888-777. No area code necessary. All right, once you're done with that, go into your message box and type in your zip code. Now, it could be the zip code that you live in, the zip code that you work in San Francisco. So I live in 94124. So I live in San Francisco. I live in the Bayview neighborhood. So once you do that, go ahead and press send, and you should get a confirmation message. Now, if we can go around afterwards, Kristen, Lisa, and I can go around afterwards and make sure you did it right. If you didn't get it right this time, don't worry about it. Come see us afterwards, and we'll take care of it. Okay? So why don't we get started? All right. So who are we? So Lisa, Kristen, and I, we're from the Department of Emergency Management. And what we do is we manage the everyday and the not-so-everyday emergencies in San Francisco. And so good example of the not-so-everyday emergencies, those are things like earthquakes, tsunamis, man-made disasters, things that would require a lot of coordination with city agencies, but also with our state and federal partners as well. We also do the everyday emergencies. Who has ever had to call 911? Have you ever had to call 911? Well, it's our dispatchers that answer the call, and they send you the police officers, the firefighters, the ambulances to get you the help they need. So that's what we do at the Department of Emergency Management. We manage the everyday and the not-so-everyday emergencies in the city. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so what are we going to learn today? We're going to learn how to get connected for emergency notifications. We all just did that. We're going to learn how to make your personal emergency preparedness plan. We're going to learn how to be prepared for an earthquake, how to prepare for a tsunami, and get to know a little bit more about San Francisco's risks. We're also going to learn about evacuation today and how to include people with disabilities and making sure that everyone gets evacuated when there is an emergency. Okay? So emergency preparedness fundamentals. Number one, you want to get connected. We talked about this already. When disaster strikes, we come together. Getting prepared is about getting to your neighbors, your loved ones. Now, you're getting information from us, but one of the most overlooked things in emergency preparedness is getting to know your neighbors. Lisa and I are here. We have our police and firefighters. We have our other first responders here that are going to be helping each other out. But the reality is your first responder is going to be your neighbor. Is going to be the person that lives next to you, that works with you. So it's a good idea to get to know who they are, because you're going to want to know who can help you during an emergency, and then also who needs help. So you can look out for one another. When you get a message, say on Alert SF, that says, hey, there's a big fire, avoid the area, or begin to evacuate, make sure you check on those people. Make sure you check on those people so that they got the message, so you can help each other out. Again, your neighbors, your coworkers, they're going to be your first responders. We talked about Alert SF a little bit. Again, we send you an emergency text message when there is some type of life safety emergency going on in San Francisco. Again, it could be a major police activity, it could be a fire, it could be something major like a tsunami or an earthquake. We also use a number of other means to get information out. The thing about emergency management is we like redundancy. We want to make sure that we have backup plans, backup ways to get in contact with you. So we're just not going to rely on Alert SF. We're also going to reach out to the media. The media is one of our big partners. We can also use the emergency alert system, and so that's the alert that comes over to TV and radio in the event there's an emergency. For those of you on social media, we support our notifications through social media as well. We know that every news agency in the Bay Area follows us on social media, so as soon as we send out an alert, they're going to start pushing out alerts on their airwaves as well. The other thing that we do is we push out siren alerts. Now, who knows what happens on Tuesdays at noon in San Francisco? All right, in the back right there. You, sir. Did everybody hear that? Yeah. It's noon when we test all the sirens. That's right. And so what do you do when you hear that siren at any other time besides Tuesday at noon? Anyone know? I want to take a guess? You say, let's see, today's not Tuesday, so if you heard the siren right now, what should you do? I heard turn on the radio. That's good. What else? Check your messages, right? So any place where you get news, it could be the internet, it could be the TV, it could be the radio. If you hear that siren at any other time besides Tuesday at noon, turn on that, go to your news source and start listening for instructions and information, okay? We're only gonna sound that alarm if there is a significant life safety emergency, okay? Meaning that you need to take action now to stay safe. Okay, we also have what's called wireless emergency alerts. So a lot of you pulled out your phones today. Did you know that we could send you a message even though you do not subscribe with us? We can send you a short message. Have you ever received an Amber Alert on your phone? If you have, that's the same system we use. The benefit of that system is that you do not have to subscribe for Alert SF. You could be a visitor. You could be a tourist. And as long as your phone is pinging or connected to a tower in San Francisco, we can send you a message. Now again, with the sirens, we reserve that for only the most extreme emergencies. Okay. All right, the next really important piece of preparing for emergency is making a plan. Who here has an emergency plan? Yeah, that's a good group of you. What's in your emergency plan? Go ahead. Okay, she has her outside area contact person, and why is that important? All right, if you didn't hear that, she's absolutely right. The phone lines are going to be jammed in San Francisco, right? It's going to be very difficult to make a call to your loved one. But if you have an out-of-area contact, somebody outside of the affected zone. For example, my out-of-area contact is my brother-in-law. He lives in Ohio. So I can give him a call. My call is more likely to reach him, and I'll let them know where I am. And all of the people in my network know to call my brother-in-law to check up on where I am. Yes, sir. Sure. Yes. I want you to repeat that. Do you want to give this class?
My question is that under the emergency, all the cell phone system, maybe a lot of people, tons of people, a surge of the traffic. So I think if we use text, this is a short text, say I'm okay or I'm injured. Or instead I call someone, hey, hello, I'm injured. This take much more, maybe 10 times, even 100 times of more of a bandwidth. So we want to load reduce the load in the traffic network. Is this a good idea or not?
That is an excellent idea. That is exactly, a text message is more likely to go through than a voice call for the exact reasons. It's less data, it's a less of a load on the network, and you're more likely to get a message out using a text message. Okay, your second question.
Okay, so based on the first question, and I was told in different city, not San Francisco. I was an engineer in Milpitas, and I went to search program like community emergency response team, something like the training. They told me that since the reason we just talked in the first question, then they let the cellular phone company set the priority in the voice data versus text data. So it's reversed because I don't know why. I don't know if true. Maybe different city has the different policy. But I want to know, say, San Francisco has what policy?
I have not heard that. Lisa, have you heard that? Kirsten, have you heard that? Okay, so what we have done, though, is we've established what's called a Lifelines Council in San Francisco. It's the key utilities, the phone providers that get together and talk about and plan how we're going to get these critical lifelines, like phone lines, like cellular, like water, back up and running after an emergency. Now, what I can tell you is what we've seen in, say, large-scale special events, especially with the cell phone companies, right? Who went to the Warriors parade yesterday? No Warriors fans here? I wish I could have gone. Who's gone to a Giants parade? Yeah, you've gone to some Giants parades. So usually what happens is you have a lot of people in a concentrated area, and it's very difficult to get signal out. What we've learned since 2010 is that the cell phone providers will start bringing in mobile cell phone towers to help boost up that network. And that's one of the things that we know that they're going to do following a major emergency is they're going to start bringing in the cell phone towers to boost the bandwidth in the area. Okay. Okay, well, no problem.
I'm sorry. Yeah, my first question is related to the emergency problems. Say I have an emergency, I get a car accident. For example, I drop in the street. I called, I'm okay now. I called the 911, and they will ask me, the first question is, where you are? So I don't know what street it is. I don't know the house number is. Say I have my cell phone, you see my GPS, right? But they say I cannot. But my colleague can. I can say the current location, text to my friend. But I cannot pass my current location to the emergency. How come this kind of things happen?
Those are all really good questions. And so first, if you don't know where you are, say you're in an unfamiliar place, right? Right. Try to triangulate. Try to look for landmarks. Okay. So say you see a big post office, you see a gas station. Try to do that, and the dispatcher will do their best. Now, in some cases, they're going to be able to get your position on a cell phone. It just depends on how modern your cell phone is. If you have a very old cell phone, then they're not going to get as accurate position. If we have something more modern, then their chances of success are greater. But it's going to take a while because they still have to get in contact with the cell phone company to help triangulate your position. Okay? But the best piece of advice I can give to anybody here is if you call 911, if you don't know where you are, stay on the line, try to call out some landmarks, and the dispatcher will do their best to try to figure out where you are. You're welcome. Okay. And also, if anyone has questions, throughout this process, we have time at the end, but I'm happy to answer one-offs as we go along. Okay. So we talked about emergency plan. My friend over there talked about having an out-of-area contact. But you're also going to want to identify what your meeting spot is going to be. Say you have to leave home very quickly, you can't get a message out. It's good to know with your people, with your family members, where you're going to meet. For me, it's the community center around the corner from my house. That's where my wife and my daughter know I'm going to be if I'm not home. And it's good to write that down. You're also going to want to make sure you have people's contact information. How many people remember people's phone numbers these days? I store. Good for you. I don't. Most of us store it on our phone. It's good to write it down. You also want to keep important contacts like your doctor's phone number, maybe your medical health number, your pediatrician, your pharmacist, veterinarian. I mean, if for those of us that have pets, you want to keep that key information handy in the event that power goes out, resources go out. The other thing is supplies, okay? And the one thing we want to tell you here is everyone here is more prepared than they think they are, okay? You can have an emergency kit at home or not. I guarantee you a lot of the supplies that you need in an emergency kit, like flashlight, water, extra food, that is all stuff you have in your house already. It's just a matter of gathering together, putting them in one place, and making sure you can reach it in the event of an emergency. Now, you can certainly go out to Costco or Bed Bath & Beyond or Target and get an emergency kit. And if that's what you want to do, feel free to do it. But you don't have to spend a lot of money to do it. You have these materials in your house, and for stuff that you don't have, you can go ahead and get. So it's stuff that you have already. Now, let's play a little crowd participation here. Now we have the different items that should go into your emergency supplies. Who knows how much water you should have for in your emergency kit? Did you say 3 gallons? 3 gallons per day per person. What else? How about you? One. Absolutely right. So 1 gallon of water per person per day, and we want you to be prepared for a minimum of 72 hours. Right. So if you have 2 people in your household, that's 6 gallons of water. Okay. If you can do more, fantastic, but please do a minimum of 3 days. The other thing is, another useful thing is cash. Cash in small amounts. Now, I'm going to put my colleague here, Kristen, on the spot because she has a really good strategy for having cash on hand and what kind of cash you should have.
I'm reminded of the $51 bills that I've got stashed away above my washing machine. So I got where 50 singles, because in the event of an emergency there that impacts all of our city services, we may not be able to use ATM machines or debit cards. So if you need to purchase something that's not very expensive, if you only have, say, $20, that store may not be able to give you change. So try and keep small bills or even coins. So that way, I'm actually really proud of myself that I haven't dipped into it for the times that I haven't had cash, because I tend to forget it where I put it. So, but in that emergency, I know where it is and what I'll do with it.
Who has emergency supplies? What do you have in your emergency supplies? I saw I had some hands go up. Yes, ma'am. What do you have? A flashlight. Great, flashlight. Do you have extra batteries for your flashlight? Radio, that's right. Okay, what else? Who else has? Band-Aid first aid kit. That's good. Personal supplies for your pet. That's fantastic. So I'm going to call out my colleague here, Lisa, who's going to talk about why it's important to have supplies for your pet.
So I think the reason Francis called me out is because we have 3 rescued dogs and a cat. So all senior dogs, not a lot of energy, and they're all different sizes. So it's important to have that because they are senior dogs and they just need to have the supplies just like their parents, their humans have. So we have a crate for each of them. We have a carrier. We have extra leashes. We have dog food stored out in the shed and cat food also. And then we have water for them too, in addition to the water that my wife and I have.
All right. And I want to plug one more thing. We can totally go spend hours going through this list. But the other thing is have extra prescriptions on hand. Now, I have heard that your doctor's office won't let you get extra prescriptions, okay? That could certainly be the case. Have a list of your prescriptions, because in the event you have to evacuate, our partners at the Red Cross or the Salvation Army or at the city can say that, like, you can tell them, like, hey, I need my prescriptions. If you have a list of it, they can go get it for you, okay? Let me get through this, and we'll do questions at the end. We have a few slides here. Now, the other thing to do is know what to do before an earthquake, okay? And so these are things that you can do in your home to help keep things safe. One good tip is store heavy items on the lowest shelves, right? The people are injured. We get most of our casualties during an earthquake for things falling down, okay? So you don't want heavy things falling down on you. Same thing here with your pictures and your paintings. Make sure that they're secured. If you have a bookcase, make sure that's secured. There's a lot of things that you can get. You can get an earthquake safety strap. It's specifically branded that way. But if you have toddlers or grandkids running around, it's the same thing that you get to secure your furniture when you have little kids, to make sure it doesn't fall on them. The other thing is keep an extra pair of sneakers under your bed or a sturdy pair of shoes. Fallen debris, broken glass, you don't want to step on that. Make sure that the flashlight is nearby as well. Make sure your hallways and exits are free and easy for evacuation. And then have a fire extinguisher in your home and know how to use it. You mentioned CERT here. In San Francisco, we call it NERT. Yeah, we do like to do things a little bit differently in San Francisco. Instead of community, it's neighborhood. Neighborhood Emergency Response Team. Are there any NERT members here? All right, congratulations. Thank you, NERT. They offer free... You're part of Alert too. Good for you. So NERT is a free program offered by the San Francisco Fire Department that teaches you how to take care of yourself, your family, and your neighborhood during an emergency. It's a good way to get to know your neighbors, and it's a really advanced way to prepare for an emergency. Okay. Now, who knows what to do during an earthquake? Earth starts shaking now. What do we do? We can address. Let's address that at the end. Okay. Who knows what to do? I think I heard you say that you want to make sure that you're in a safe place, that you take cover, and that you hold on, right? Essentially, you want to remember these things. Drop, cover, and hold on. Now, you mentioned a few things, and I want to address a few urban legends as well, okay? So number one, you mentioned the doorway, okay? That is something that I was taught, even growing up here, and that's not necessarily the safest thing to do. It used to be that was the strongest part of your house. That's with a lot of very old homes. The way homes are built these days, that's not necessarily true. We talked about things falling during an earthquake. If you're running around trying to look for the doorway, trying to look for the triangle of life, then you are more likely to be hit by debris. Drop, cover, and hold on. Make sure your head is covered. If there's a sturdy table, get under that. That is the safest thing to do in the event of an earthquake. And I'm going to let Kristen break it down here because she's really the expert.
Well, if you're not by a table, as Francis said, you don't want to run around looking for a table. So just drop where you are and cover your head. So you don't necessarily have to be under something to cover. It's basically trying to protect your head and your vital organs from getting hurt. And oftentimes, a significant earthquake will very likely cause such significant shaking that the earthquake will drop you before you can drop yourself. So it's safer to just get yourself to the ground so that you're not subject to getting hurt from the shaking and things falling on you. Thank you, Francis.
Thank you, Kristen. Now, after an earthquake, if you have to leave your home, if your home is not safe, okay, make sure you leave a trail. Okay, put a note on your door saying where you went, or hey, I went to my emergency meeting spot. Make sure you stay tuned for information. If you're signed up for Alert SF, that's one way. Make sure if you have your hand cranked radio, make sure you take that with you so you can always have information. And then, it's not listed on here, but if it's safe to do so, again, check on your neighbors. Make sure they're okay. Make sure you're checking up on them because it's always good. Again, you guys, you and your neighbors are each other's first responders. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about, we're going to switch gears here and talk about some of our risks in San Francisco, right? We're here to talk about earthquakes. This is an earthquake safety fair. And so the likelihood for a magnitude 6.7 or larger earthquake somewhere in California, that's our whole entire state, it remains at a near certainty, greater than 99% chance in the next 30 years that we're going to have some type of major earthquake. Now, in the Greater Bay Area, we can look at the San Andreas Fault or the Hayward Fault or Calaveras Fault. You add all these numbers up, and we're looking at a greater than 70% chance of an earthquake happening within the Bay Area. So our risk is real. Now, these are the different things that can happen during an earthquake. Liquefaction. A lot of you maybe came here to see about how you strengthen your soft story home or how you retrofit your home. That's essentially, if you remember 1989, these are the buildings that are pancaking on top of each other. Okay, that was caused by liquefaction in the Marina District. Landslides could occur. It's unlikely, but it's possible a tsunami could occur as well. We can get more into tsunamis as well. And here we go, tsunamis. And so tsunami is also a risk that we have here. Now I'm going to start off by saying this. A no-notice tsunami, something that when we have very little warning, we have a very low risk of that here in San Francisco. It's possible, but it's an unlikely. It's a highly unlikely scenario. Lisa is actually our planning manager as well, and her team put together San Francisco's tsunami response plan. What we are more likely to experience is a distant source tsunami. Say there is an earthquake, underwater sea eruption in Asia, in Alaska, up the northern coast, or even down south. Then a distant source tsunami is a more likely scenario for us. With that said, we have more time. We have more time to react, right? For an event in Alaska, it's anywhere from 4 to 6 hours. For an event in Asia, it's 8 to 12 hours, right? For the Cascadia zone, it's what, 2 hours? 2 hours. So there will be some time to get some warning out there. Now, most people think our tsunami risk is just on the ocean side, while a great number of our communities in the Richmond and the Sunset could be affected by a tsunami. You also have to consider that our bay communities are also at risk. So that's the marina, that's along the Embarcadero, that's along the Bayview, and that's all of Treasure Island. Okay, and so that's certainly one of the risks that we have. Now one of the things that you can do is you can go to our website, sf72.org, and if you live along the water, you can find out if you live in one of the tsunami impact zones. All you have to do is go to our website, you can type your address in here, and it'll show you if you live in one of the impact zones. And it'll also show you where these E's are, where our evacuation centers are in the event of a tsunami. Now, more about tsunamis. They're typically caused by large earthquakes in subduction zones. They can move up to 500 miles an hour in the open ocean. They start moving slower, but they grow a lot larger once they start reaching shore. Okay? And the other thing you need to keep in mind is that most people think that a tsunami is one large wave coming. No, it's a series of waves that can occur over a number of hours. And usually the first wave is not the largest. Okay, I think I just said that. Awesome. We talked about this as well. Just a fun fact for you guys. We actually have observed about 55 tsunamis in San Francisco since 1850. Okay, now the most recent one was in 2011 when we had the earthquake in Japan. Now it caused more damage in Santa Cruz and up north in Crescent County, but we did see like an inch rise, nothing significant in San Francisco Bay itself, and you can kind of see that imagery right there. Again, we talked about this, the risk of a distant source versus a near source tsunami. Again, a distant source is our most likely scenario. Now, what to do when you get a warning, okay? There's a lot of terms out there when there is a tsunami warning that can easily be confused. And so quickly we can talk about what those type of different warnings could be, okay? Number one is a tsunami watch. So if you hear the term tsunami watch, this essentially means that there may be a tsunami coming. They're still evaluating it, right? It could be a series of waves, it could be strong currents, but what this tells you to do, if you ever hear the word tsunami watch, if there's a tsunami watch, start listening, turn on your news source, and stand by for more information, okay? Start thinking about your emergency plan, okay? When you hear tsunami warning, this means that dangerous coastal flooding or powerful currents are expected or are already occurring. So if you hear the word tsunami warning, that means that it's likely going to happen or it is happening already. A tsunami advisory is slightly different. You may not get the waves, but it means that there are strong currents and that going out into the water or being near the coast is very dangerous. Did I get that right? Okay. I gotta check with the expert here. So those are just some of the things that you want to keep in mind. Okay. Now there's also now how are you going to know about a tsunami? Now we can certainly send you alerts on Alert SF through the YS Emergency Alert System, but there's also nature's warning signs. So if you say you're on the coast, you're standing on a beach, and you feel an earthquake, it's extremely violent, lasting more than 20 seconds, to the point where you could barely stand. That is one of nature's warning signs. If you hear a loud roar coming from the ocean, that is one of nature's warning signs. If the water suddenly starts to rapidly recede, that is one of the nature's warning signs. And the thing to do is to move inland and move to higher ground. Now, along all our coast in San Francisco, we have tsunami evacuation route signs. Follow those blue signs. Even if you don't see those signs, just keep moving inland. Okay? And keep moving inland until you are in a safe place. So at this time, I'm going to pass it off to Lisa and Joanna, and then we'll take questions at the end. They're going to talk about evacuation. They're going to talk about make sure we're taking care of people with disabilities.
Can everyone hear me? Great. So as Francis said, my name is Lisa Stolliper. I work with Francis and Kristen with the Department of Emergency Management. And also one of my other roles is I'm Access and Functional Needs Coordinator, which means that we want to make sure that individuals with disabilities and access and functional needs are taken into account when we are doing our emergency planning. And to help with that process, we've partnered with the Mayor's Office on Disability and my colleague Joanna here, so I'll let her move us along with the conversation.
So, Francis got a little demographics for the group. How many of you either know or have someone in your life that has a disability? How many of you have grandparents, parents, or somebody who's an older adult in their lives? Right, so now if we combine both of them, we're talking about vulnerable populations. Not necessarily because they are vulnerable on a day-to-day basis, but when an earthquake or a disaster happens, people are not having the regular systems of support. So, for example, I used to live in an apartment building on the top floor. I am able to get in and out of my house every single time. But what happens when in an earthquake the elevator and the power goes out? People are stranded. We have a lot of older adults that live alone. They could be injured during an earthquake and be unable to get out. We have adults who older adults or people in wheelchairs that may not be able to get out of their house because maybe the ramp is broken, the stairs have fallen out, and they're basically trapped in their homes. Even if the earth has stopped shaking, folks may need access to medications, food, medical services. How do we plan for all of that? How many of you remember the Santa Rosa fires? Remember the story in the news about the nursing home residents who were basically left by themselves? There's also other stories about blind people who were not able to get notifications and evacuate, and deaf people who were not able to get the information and at a great risk to their families and themselves. So really, what Francis said was that preparedness is really all about people. Part of what our office does, which is the ADA office for the City and County of San Francisco, is to really partner up with the Department of Emergency Management and make sure that we do have these conversations, from accessible shelters to how many of you are involved in a congregation or a church? Okay. Chances are that you do have residents or congregants that you know about that will be needing help to evacuate. Studies show us that neighbors are the best predictor of whether someone is going to survive an emergency. Lisa is going to talk a little bit about our coordinating group, and then for those of you who are business owners, how many of you live in a high-rise? Not many of you. We were prepared to talk to folks who are working in a high-rise building and being able to talk about quick and easy ways to evacuate if you have a person who cannot go down the stairs. There is more than just wheelchair users that have difficulty using the stairs. There is folks with bad backs, bad knees, chronic health conditions, cardiac issues, or lung issues. So Lisa's going to talk a little bit about our group. Please contact us and kind of join us in creating a community response to helping our loved ones and our neighbors. Okay, Lisa?
All right. Thanks, Joanna. So I understand I didn't make enough copies, so apologies up front about that. So on Friday, or by Friday, Francis is going to put this up on the sf72.org website for everyone. And my contact information is on the back of this, at the end of this document. But this group was formed in March of 2017 with the intention of making sure that we are taking the disability community into account when we were talking about emergency planning. And some of the areas that we wanted to really ensure that we were focused on was emergency communications, emergency evacuations, and emergency sheltering. So a lot of that counts, like when we're talking transportation, kind of covers a lot of those areas also. So we all have, we're aware of paratransit in the city, but when there's an earthquake, paratransit drivers might not be in the cities. If it happens on the weekend, paratransit might not be an option. So one of the things we're trying to do is to get an inventory of the accessible transportation that's available in San Francisco that we can call on and partner with so that we can have that means for us. The other thing is accessible communications. We want to make sure that our public messaging, and this is where we'll work closely alongside Francis and his team, is that our messaging is going out in multiple languages, that it's going out in an accessible means for the deaf community, that it's going out in accessible means for the blind and low vision community. So we have to make sure we cover all of that area so that we are actually focusing on supporting the whole community of San Francisco, not just a certain demographic or population. So some of the areas that we've specifically been focused on was working with the fire department, the Department of Building Inspections, and others to talk about the evacuation from buildings, whether we're talking high-rise buildings, 2 stories, 40 stories. So that's something Joanna's going to talk a little more about that too. And then using technology, using our GIS technology, we also want to start mapping out some of the disability and access and functional need resources that are available to the community. And eventually, as Francis showed you guys the maps where you could type in your address and you could find out whether you're in a tsunami zone, eventually we're going to put a disability and access and functional needs dashboard up so that you can type in addresses, or if you're looking for accessible transportation, if you're looking for a place that you need to buy canes or you need to get wheelchairs, that we have that information kind of in a one-stop shopping type format for people to look at. Or if there's an incident, we can type that address in and see what resources are right there near that location where that incident happened. So this group, a little bit, it's made up of city departments. And one of those challenges is, city departments, everybody kind of has a little bit of a piece of the puzzle. So during a disaster, we want to make sure that we're not duplicating efforts. So part of this group actually deconflicts some of those efforts. So we don't want to be wasting valuable resources with people doing the same thing. So we want to make sure we can kind of consolidate some of those efforts, and this group helps get those conversations started. So we meet every other month. And we also have community organizations that join us, and they come and talk about their organization and what they're doing to focus on emergency management for the community that they're serving. And we welcome any sort of input. Like I said, my contact information is here. If you have a concern or if there's a topic that you would like us to kind of address, Joanna and I are both happy to take those inquiries and do our best to follow through on those.
For those of you who don't necessarily have access to a website, both Lisa and I are having a table over there, and I can at least give you my email address so you can receive updates about the progress of this working group. But frankly, just join us. We really cannot plan for people with disabilities or older adults unless we actually have participation from the community we're planning. Everybody assumes that as vulnerable populations, the fire and police are going to come and respond. But guess what? It's not going to happen, at least for a week. And so our loved ones prepared to survive for 7 days. Basic services are not going to be restored. I also wanted to point out that for many of you who may have a loved one or yourselves live in a building that's above ground, if you live on the second, third, fourth, fifth floor of an apartment building with an elevator even, you're not going to be able to get out. One of the things that we are trying to push, both private and public buildings, is to install what we call evacuation chairs. Who here remembers the World Trade Center situation? There were over 300 people with disabilities working in those twin towers. How many of them do you think survived? 2. It was a little better than 0. 2. The reason for that is because they were prepared and they had a plan about how they were going to get out. One of them actually had an evacuation chair under their desk. So when the advisory came, and the plan was wait by the stairs and the firefighters are going to come and get you out. This man's best friend and colleague said, you know what, that's going to take too long. Let's start using your evacuation chair. You already have it. It took about 6 colleagues of that gentleman going down 75 floors to get him to safety. Yes, you would think it's very heroic, and of course it is, and the commitment is that way. But again, evacuation chair was one of the things that literally saves lives. It's a device, and I do have some examples of what they look like. They are little chairs on treads, like a little tank, and they roll down the stairs very easily, so a smaller person can actually evacuate a person double their size. They are not very expensive to install. If you happen to be in a condo, let's say, with the homeowners association, make sure you talk about that. In the city and county buildings, the government buildings, and the buildings that we lease, we have made it a policy to have a very active installation process for those evacuation chairs. If you happen to be in City Hall and something happens, know that we do have those stored, and the sheriff's deputies know how to get access to them. And we encourage everybody to do the same.
Great. Thank you, Joanna. So as she mentioned, we do have some more handouts here. So they'll be over at our table. She has a couple examples of what an evacuation chair looks like and how to select the best chair that you might need. So I think we have a few minutes for questions.
We can take one more question, and if you have any additional, we'll all be at the table. So, one more question. Okay, you sir. Yes.
1 gallon water per person per day. And I have a water heater for like 40 or 50 gallons. The question is if you don't have the water in, you cannot get the water out from the faucet. My question is how to easily get the water, this is precious, from my water heater in an easy way, and I want to make a post stick on the water heater, and so easy for me to remember. Maybe I'm nervous.
Yes, you can absolutely access your water heater. Now, I'll be honest with you. I am not the most handy person in the world. Lisa, you know how to access the water heater? No. Okay. Okay. You do? Okay.
It's actually very easy. There's a drain. You just put a screwdriver and twist it, and it'll just flush right out. So you can control the speed right near the valve. Yeah, that's a good idea. Put a screwdriver next to it. Have a wrench too for your gas line as well. Okay. Now I'm getting the wrap up. We've got to do a raffle, which is very exciting. So I'm going to turn it over to Fred.
First of all, Francis and his team. And now we'll do a raffle.
First one, A3A7220. Second one, A3A7145. 8387145. The first one, A3A7175. 8387175. The first one is A3A7157. The last one is A3A7206. 8387206. A3A7206. 8387206.
Thanks again, and as Francis said, Francis, where's your booth?
We're right there in the middle row, right in the middle.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate your attention.